The Adeptus Ministorum, known more informally as the Ecclesiarchy, is the main religious institution endorsed by the Imperium of Man. The primary purpose of the Ecclesiarchy is to spread and maintain the religion known as the Imperial Cult, which focuses primarily upon the worship of the Emperor of Mankind as the one true God of humanity. The Imperial Cult is one of only 2 religions that are permitted to exist within the modern-day Imperium, with the other being that of the Cult Mechanicus, a religious doctrine followed by the tech priests of the Adeptus Mechanicus. While the key tenets of the religion will typically remain the same regardless of world, many cultures will practice their own sanctioned variations of the Imperial Cult, either through differing interpretations of its teachings or due to primitive native traditions being adapted by Imperial missionaries. To the Ecclesiarchy, one of the greatest dangers faced by humanity is that of the heretic. An individual can be found guilty of heresy by the Ecclesiarchy through a number of means, such as by deviating too much from the tenets of the cult, questioning the divinity of the God Emperor, or by practicing an unsanctioned religion such as the worship of Chaos or Xenos gods. And yet, despite the organization's hatred of heretics, few realize that the foundations of the Imperial Cult were established by a man who would come to be known as the First Heretic, the Primarch of the Word-Bearer's Traitor Legion, Ilqar Aurelian. Prior to turning to the worship of the Chaos gods, Ilqar would pen a text known as the Lectitio Divinitatis, which praised the divinity of the Emperor of Mankind. Many bootleg copies of this text would begin circulating in secret throughout the common citizenry of the Imperium, despite the widespread propagation of anti-religious and pro-scientific sentiment circulated by the Emperor's imperial truth. The practice of worshipping the Emperor would begin to grow so commonplace following the culmination of the Horus Heresy that by M32, the Imperial Cult would come to be recognized as the state religion of the Imperium. The powerful and highly influential Terran-based cult known as the Temple of the Savior Emperor would become officially reclassified by the High Lords of Terra as the Adeptus Ministorum, and charged with overseeing and maintaining the Imperial Cult. Unknown to most, one of the Ecclesiarchy's earliest influences was, somewhat surprisingly, a loyalist word-bearer that would come to be known within historical records simply as the Anchorite. During the course of the Horus Heresy, the Anchorite would take part during the assault upon Calth, believing that his legion's actions were justified following the destruction of the holy city of Monarchia by the Ultramarines Legion. However, the Anchorite would come to the realization that this cycle of conflict could only result in ever-increasing strife, and so surrendered to the Ultramarines seeking to be executed for his crimes. To his surprise, however, the Anchorite would not be slain, but instead taken prisoner and left to rot within a dungeon, where he would pray for the souls of his brothers and seek penance for his actions. Following the conclusion of the heresy, the Anchorite would begin to nurture and guide the nascent Ecclesiarchy, not only by acting in a manner akin to a holy scribe, but also by teaching the organization various methods of venerating the glory of the God Emperor, many of which being learned during his youth. Over time, however, the word-bearer would become overwhelmed with the guilt of his past sins, and as a result would attempt to take his own life, to seek forgiveness for his crimes. The Anchorite would be denied the absolution that his death would have brought, as the Ecclesiarchy would inter his body within the sarcophagus of a contempted dreadnought as punishment. The Anchorite would eventually be confined to an underground chamber deep beneath the cathedral palace of the cardinal world of Almace, within the backwater Odoacer system. The task of upholding the secret of the Anchorite's existence would be entrusted to the cardinal governor of Almace and his future descendants. Rubicante Gilliman would give the cardinal governor a special code sequence to transmit to Terra should the Traitor Legions learn of the Anchorite's existence. In early M42, a massive Word-Bearer's fleet would launch an invasion of the Odoacer system. It would be revealed that the Chaos Lord Amatsnim Urnabas had learned of the existence of the Anchorite and tracked him down to this particular planetary system. The Cardinal Governor of Almace would transmit the secret code that had been given to his ancestors many millennia ago, prompting Guilliman to send forces from the Imperial Fists, White Scars, and Raven Guard chapters to aid and reinforce the world's defenses. Upon learning that his heretical brothers had come for him, the Anchorite initially declared that he would not fight his wayward kin, though as the siege of Almace grew in its intensity, Cardinal Governor Aemon would convince the Dreadnought to stand against the traitors. When the Anchorite made his way to the surface, he would utter a single word in ancient Colchizian that caused immense pain and distress to both heretic Astartes and demonic entity alike. The Dreadnought's body would then become briefly enveloped with an intense aura of power, as detailed with the following passage from the novel Apocalypse.
The Neverborn screamed. As one they screamed. The sound rose to such agonizing heights that Amatnim was forced to cut his audio sensors, but it did no good. For the sound was not simply noise, but something horribly spiritual. A scream of elemental fury and frustration, but also of resignation. The demons flickered like a distorted signal, their forms stretching and wavering before snapping back into focus. A strange light swelled, seeming to rise from the Dreadnought's battered chassis, and Amatnim was forced to turn away. The light spread, and for a moment, Amatnim thought he glimpsed great wings. Not 2, not 4, but 6 or a dozen or more, rising from the Dreadnought's back, and a face, wise and pitiless in its wisdom, superimposed over the bare helm of the ancient war machine. He knew, then, deep in himself, why he was here, and in his head, the whispers of the gods fell silent, just for a moment. That inhuman gaze, like a solar flare narrowed to the width of a human eye, lashed across the invaders, as bright as the Astronomican itself. This place is not for you, the Dreadnought said. Around him, demons came apart, scattering like ash on the breeze. The effect spread like a contagion through their ranks, claiming them even as they turned to run, to flee.
The Word-Bearers would attempt to bring this ancient war machine down, but the Anchorite would tear through the ranks of the traitors with ease, and thanks to his presence, Imperial forces would rally before finally defeating the heretics. The Anchorite would then return to his chambers deep beneath the Cathedral Palace. But the biggest question that remains unanswered is just how did the Anchorite manage to harness such otherworldly power? One possibility is that the Anchorite could merely have been a psyker of incredible potency, possibly even a former librarian of the Word-Bearers Legion. This could potentially explain as to how the Anchorite was able to banish so many demonic entities within his immediate vicinity, as demons are known to be highly susceptible to the powers of the warp. The wings of light displayed by the Anchorite could also be a potential sign of the Word-Bearer being a psyker, as some Space Marine librarians have been known to use their powers to sprout wings made from psychic energy, in order to grant them the powers of flight, even if only temporarily. While it is exceptionally rare for librarians to be interred within a Dreadnought sarcophagus, such a practice is not unheard of, as the Blood Angels and their successor chapters are well known for their librarian Dreadnoughts. However, this particular prospect would appear to be the least likely for a number of reasons. For starters, this particular manifestation of the Anchorite's power is exhibited only once, and during the remainder of the siege, the Dreadnought relied more on utilizing his claws in order to crush and tear apart his foes, as opposed to utilizing any other warp-based abilities. while it is admittedly possible that the Anchorite merely felt that there was no need to make any more use of his psychic abilities, should he indeed truly be a psyker, it seems somewhat reckless for a warrior not to make use of every weapon and tool available to him, especially during such a pivotal moment of the battle. In addition, when warp-based abilities are harnessed, they are often accompanied by a substantial drop in temperature, resulting in the psyker and everything within their immediate vicinity becoming coated with hoarfrost. When the Anchorite exhibited his powers, no such decrease in temperature was recorded. As such, while admittedly not impossible, it does seem fairly unlikely that the Anchorite's power was purely warp-based in nature. The second and admittedly most likely explanation regarding the mysterious abilities displayed by the Anchorite is that the potency and intensity of this power was purely a result of the Anchorite's faith. It has been well documented that an individual's faith in the Imperial cult or the God Emperor can be remarkably powerful in its own right. While most commonly exhibited by the Adeptus Sororitas, who are often seen as being the epitome of purity and devotion to the Emperor, there have been multiple accounts of these powers of faith being demonstrated by other Imperial forces, such as the Astra Militarum and even within the ranks of the Adeptus Astartes. However, just what exactly this power exhibited by one's faith truly is somewhat open to interpretation. Some have speculated that faith is merely a type of psychic discipline, whereas others believe that it is something else entirely. Regardless of what this power may truly be, faith is able to manifest itself in a number of different ways. Faith has been shown to protect the pious from warp-based attacks by erecting barriers of light. It has even been shown to prevent the faithful from succumbing to the corrupting influence of chaos itself, and even banish demonic entities back into the depths of the warp. Such manifestations of faith are often accompanied by an aura of golden light, much like that which briefly emanated from the Dreadnought sarcophagus. In addition, when the Anchorite banished the Word-Bearer's demonic allies from the material realm, Amatsnim would proclaim that the power displayed by the Anchorite was anathema, which is a term utilized by those associated with the ruinous powers to describe both the powers of faith and even those of the Emperor himself. While it is almost unheard of for the destructive capability of faith to be as devastating as the power demonstrated by the Anchorite, there is a possible explanation regarding the potency of the Dreadnought's power. The Anchorite has been an active and devout worshipper of the Emperor of Mankind for over 10,000 years, longer than any other individual alive today within the Imperium. As such, it's reasonable to assume that such continued, unwavering devotion to the Emperor would have, over the millennia, continued to increase in strength until it reached a level of potency rarely, if ever, seen within a singular individual. While this may prove to be the most likely hypothesis, there are still a number of possibilities that could provide a potential explanation regarding the source of the Anchorite's power. For example, could the Anchorite have, somehow, achieved a form of apotheosis, becoming a type of being known as a living saint? Living saints are beings of immense power that can cause the faithful to fall to their knees in awe, and heretics to flee in terror due to the intense aura of holiness exuded by their presence. Living saints can emerge from all walks of life, be they civilian or soldier, although the majority of such individuals tend to emerge from the ranks of the Adeptus Sororitas. Living saints are often commonly shown as being enveloped by an aura of divine purity, which is often seen by others as a golden light. Many of these beings are also shown to have wings, which can either be formed from a physical material, such as feathers or metal, like those displayed by Saint Celestine, or comprised entirely of shimmering energy, like the wings of Saint Sabbat. The Anchorite, at least temporarily, was shown to display a number of traits exhibited by living saints, specifically the divine aura and the manifestation of wings. The fact that the Anchorite was also briefly referred to as anathema could also suggest that the dreadnought had transcended mortality to become something even greater, such as a physical incarnation of the Emperor's will. Although admittedly, there is little else to support this notion, as the Anchorite showed no other traits commonly associated with living saints, such as the ability to resurrect themselves from death. Alternatively, perhaps the Anchorite was momentarily possessed by the power of the Emperor himself. The Emperor of Mankind has been known to channel his essence into a physical host in order to utilize his abilities whenever they are needed most. One such example was demonstrated within the novel Plague War, when the Emperor would use a young girl named Kalia as a vessel for his power. Through Kalia, the Emperor would purge the corruption left in the wake of the diseased followers of the Chaos God Nurgle, and use his purifying light to instantaneously banish scores of demonic entities with little effort. A number of demons would even refer to the power displayed by this girl as being that of the anathema. However, such was the potency and intensity of the Emperor's divine power that it would prove to be far too great for Kalia's body to bear, and she would eventually die as a result. Much like that shown with Kalia, the Anchorite's power, as mentioned earlier, was also described as anathema. Since demonic entities view the term anathema as being synonymous with the Emperor, in addition to the acts of faith associated with him, this would initially appear to support the notion that the Anchorite could very well have served as a vessel for the Emperor himself. The face that briefly enveloped the Anchorite's own faceplate could potentially have even been a representation of the Emperor's own visage, although it is admittedly equally likely that this brief depiction of a face could have been that of the Anchorite himself, prior to his internment within a dreadnought sarcophagus. Regardless as to how the Anchorite was able to harness such power, few can deny this dreadnought's spiritual purity and devotion to the Emperor of Mankind. What do you think? Leave a comment below, and thanks for watching.